So in NBA news, Patrick Beverley as well as Rondo are going to be heading to the Grizzlies, and the Clippers are going to get Eric Bledsoe. Now, when you talk about Patrick Beverley, he's been in a lot of trade rumors, and low key, the Clippers have been trying to find a trade partner for Patrick Beverley. And I felt like Patrick Beverley final nail in the coffin as far as being a member of the Los Angeles Clippers is when he pushed Chris Paul in the back, and he ended up getting suspended for this up and coming NBA season. And I knew that was the last nail in the coffin for him. And he was the last founding member of Doc Rivers' roster, and they coined them the Lunch Pail Group, where, they had a lot of players that were not superstars, and they were blue-collar workers, yada, yada, yada. He was in that roster with Montrezl Harrell, and Doc Rivers coached that team, and he couldn't even get that team to the finals, all right, or even to the semifinals. And I knew that this day was coming because low-key, the Clippers have been trying to get rid of and trying to find a dance partner for Patrick Beverley. Now, Patrick Beverley is great on the defensive end, but as far as offense, his offensive scoring is just not there. That's not what he hangs his hat on. He really hangs his hat on being a defensive stopper, even though he had flashes of brilliance in the playoffs, particularly when Kawhi Leonard went down. And I thought his stock was going to rise because of that, and the Clippers were going to keep him on their roster, but I felt like the final nail was done when he pushed bad sportsmanship on his part, pushing Chris Paul in the back. It's unexcusable. And now he's with the Grizzlies. And when you look at Rondo, which Rondo couldn't even make it on the floor to contribute some for the Clippers deep into their playoff run. But when you look at both of these players, they're going to go to the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies already have a stacked roster. Even though the Grizzlies are saying the right things, they, as far as keeping them, I'm suspecting that they're going to flip these two players. Well, they're basically going to flip one of these two players, and I feel like the odd man out is Patrick Beverley, and they'll probably keep him long enough until they can find them a trade partner. Maybe a contending team would want the services of Patrick Beverley. I feel like when you look at Rondo is going to be one of those casualties that they're going to buy out his final year of his contract, which the Atlanta Hawks paid. He went to the Atlanta Hawks searching for money last season and got a 2-year deal, and just did not work with the Atlanta Hawks. And then that's when the Clippers traded players. Traded players as well as picks. Well, just a player, swapping players. And they ended up getting Rondo for their playoff run. The Clippers thought that maybe Rondo can do his magic like he did for the Los Angeles Clippers when they won a title in that bubble format, the Hubble bubble format. I still consider them champions. I'm just, finding kind of ironic and funny how people don't consider that a championship for the Lakers, but neither here nor there. And the Clippers thought that maybe they can get something out of Rondo. Rondo struggled to make the roster deep into the playoffs. And Rondo is a much older player, okay? And I feel like they're going to buy him out. Is there a future for Rondo to return to professional basketball as a player? I'm not going to shut the window shut on that option. There may be some contending teams that would sign Rondo to the veteran minimum. I don't think the door is closed on him as far as playing in the NBA again next season. And And who knows, maybe the Grizzlies might end up keeping him. Okay, but the Grizzlies have a young roster. And to be truthfully honest with you, Rondo really works best with a veteran roster. But they got some very intriguing pieces over there with the Grizzlies. It's all young talent. The sky's the limit for the Grizzlies. They have the potential of going into the playoffs and making a lot of noise in the playoffs. They tried to work this experiment with Rondo, sending Rondo going to the Atlanta Hawks, and that experience did not work out well. And they actually did better when they got Rondo up out of there. Ice Trae was flourishing. And, Rondo went to the Clippers, and he was just holding the Clippers down as much as he could, but he just couldn't find his way on the roster. But as far as Rondo and Patrick Beverley, that's what the Grizzlies are probably going to do with those two players. They'll probably end up keeping either or of these players. And if they keep them, they're probably keeping them because there's no suitors as of right now. Maybe when it gets deep into the trade deadline, there may be some suitors. But as of right now, the landscape is bare. All right. Now, for Eric Bledsoe, this is intriguing because the Clippers were in talks of getting John Wall. Well, by them getting Eric Bledsoe, that search is null and void. And now you're going to have Bledsoe with Paul George. Kawhi Leonard is going to be out. A lot of people think that he may return into the All-Star break. I first thought that he might return to the All-Star break. But knowing Kawhi Leonard, if he's not close to 110%, he's not going to touch a court. Okay? He's not going to touch any court. So I feel like the likelihood of him making it to the All-Star break, I just don't see it. It's, maybe if they're deep into the playoffs, he would return. With Paul George and Eric Bledsoe, they're going to need one more thing. Even though they re-signed, they re-signed their players, and they still have Paul George. They signed him to a max contract. They got Kawhi Leonard. They just signed him to a max contract. But Kawhi Leonard is not going to be on that roster anytime soon. I think Patrick Beverley, Eric Bledsoe would hold it down long enough for a possibility of Kawhi Leonard. And with this move, if you look at this move that they made, it kind of points to Kawhi Leonard maybe returning a lot earlier than a lot of people are thinking. Even myself, he might return at All-Star before the All-Star break, or he might return if they make it to the playoffs. But I feel like with this move, it's pointing towards those options than him just not returning at all. Okay, so and the Clippers have a decent roster, and I said in my last video, they dropped down a bit, but they're still a good team that can make it to the playoffs. Okay, even though with all the other transactions happening with other teams, and you never know about the NBA season. It's unpredictable. It's not predictable. A lot of people are plugging in and penciling in the Lakers, since they got Carmelo Anthony and they got Russell Westbrook. They already have AD. They got LeBron, and they added pieces to that roster. My concern is still shooting. I'm talking about perimeter shots and 3-point shots or attempts. Even though Carmelo Anthony has demonstrated with the Portland Trail Blazers of being a spot-up shooter, I just think plugging him in with the Los Angeles roster is different than the Portland Trailblazers roster, where you can spread the floor a lot better. But we'll have to wait and see if this mad scientist experiment pays off for LeBron and the organization of the Los Angeles Lakers, Jeannie Buss and them. We'll have to wait and see how that works out, how that plays out, okay? But I feel like they should have went a little bit younger with the Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield was a better three-point shooter than Russell Westbrook. Okay, he's a lot younger, and you can pair him up with AD when LeBron is done playing basketball. You still have a young core there. You have to think about your future, but they want to win now, and I understand that. And we'll have to wait and see how all this plays out. But as far as the Clippers go, I think they got a little bit better with this trade. And normally I would do a grade and tell y'all who won from this trade. I'll be honest with you. I feel like the Clippers won big in this trade. Not because of what they got in return, but what they gave up. Rondo was just only getting older. And if he couldn't make it in the starting lineup or get some real minutes for the Clippers, even when Kawhi was down on that playoff run, I just think it would have dwindled. His time would have dwindled a lot more if he would have continued to stay with the Clippers just in the regular season. Patrick Beverley, they've been wanting to move Patrick Beverley for some time now. Patrick Beverley's name has always been in the rumor mill. And low-key, they've been trying to get rid of Patrick Beverley. Now Patrick Beverley is a great defender, okay? But he's not very good consistently on the offensive end, okay? Which he struggled. And he was one of the guys that was complaining about the signings of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and how they get treated differently from the other roster. And he spoke the loudest about that, as well as Montrezl Harrell. And it's funny that both of these players are no longer there. They're no longer there. Lou Williams was a part of that trade with Rondo. That's how they got Rondo. They got rid of Lou Williams. And they've been trying to get rid, and they were successful in getting rid of Lou Williams. Because remember, Lou Williams just couldn't get out of the strip clubs, particularly in the bubble format. And he wasn't the main reason, but he was one of the reasons why the Clippers crashed and burned in that bubble format, and the Lakers ended up winning a championship. Okay, so yeah, that's all I got for today. I think the Clippers won. The Grizzlies, they didn't win now, but if they can manage to flip either or of these players to get some draft picks or some, because their roster is already stocked. It's already full. If they can just get draft picks or some players that can contribute now, later on they can win as well. But as right now, the biggest winner is the Clippers. Well, that's all I got for today, guys. Tell me what you think. Rate, comment, subscribe. I will see you guys later. Deuces.